Welcome everyone out there to the premiere episode of By the Block PR's Blockcast. My name is Krystal. For those of you that don't know me, I am the founder of By the Block, the movement that I created to bridge that gap between the diaspora here and the Puerto Ricans on the mainland, aimed at focusing on relocating and getting us to move back. So this podcast has been in the works for a little while. Full transparency, I shot this week ago with my best friend, and I just didn't like the format. I didn't like the lighting, and I also just felt like it was a little bit too interviewy. And really, the whole premise of By the Block is that it is a real, raw, honest, everyday person movement, somebody with a heart for Puerto Rico. And so I figured the better way to do this is to just be here in my home, you and I together right now, answering some questions about me. Because By the Block's tagline is my story, my block, my legacy. And there is no better episode than the first episode to introduce myself and what those things mean to me so that we can get to know each other and hopefully partner together. Again, really big thank you to everybody who has supported the movement up until now. The response has been incredible. And so sincerely from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate every single follow. I appreciate every beautiful message of support that I've received. And my only goal is truly to just keep this honest and keep this going so that we can continue to do the work that we know needs to get done in Puerto Rico. So I'll start a little bit about By the Block really quickly in case anybody is new to this community and you don't know what By the Block is. By the Block's main focus is really to educate and to inspire and to bridge that gap between the Puerto Ricans from the diaspora and the local community on the island. And, I want to use this platform to confront the things that separate us, right? We have to just talk about them. And the way we're going to do that is in real, honest, and open conversations. And we're also going to inspire each other with our stories, listening to everybody's story, and especially Puerto Ricans who have moved from here to the island and made a successful life for themselves. We need to hear more of that. My intentions really and truly are to change the conversation that we're having around Puerto Rico. We know there's so much negativity, so many myths, so many misconceptions around Puerto Rico. And so we really want to change that conversation into something that's much more positive, united, and action focused. We can all bring awareness to the issues in Puerto Rico, but if we don't put any action behind that, then what are we really doing for the island? So we want to bring action from the conversations that we're having here. And, I truly see every challenge that's in Puerto Rico not as a barrier to moving there or a deterrent, but really more motivation and more opportunity, right? It's all opportunity for us to take the resources that we have here and bring them back to that island so that we can help our island and create a Puerto Rico that is for Puerto Ricans here and there. And so, I want to encourage us to think of each other as two pieces of a puzzle. Here in the States, we have, like I said, the resources, the money, the education, the connections, all of those things that are lacking in the mainland. But it's very important to acknowledge that on the mainland, they are the keepers of the culture. They are the keepers of the traditions, of our heritage that we all must admit we so desperately long for here in the diaspora. And so one can't do it without the other. And I want to make sure that we're very conscious, socially conscious of that as we continue to pursue this journey together with each other, because it is going to be an amazing one. So that's what's brought us here today to this premiere episode of the podcast. I'll, talk a little later about what's going to come from the movement. There are so many exciting pieces to it that are already launching and have already begun. And I want to include you guys in all of that. But first, let's get to know each other. Quick 5 little facts about me, just so you know. Let's break the ice. I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up here in New York City, lived here until I was 18 and then went to Florida for college. But I grew up on the Lower East Side. So shout out to LES and all my people in LES. And we'll definitely talk about that a little bit more later on in this podcast. But I graduated from USF, so I went to Tampa. I'm a Bull. Go Bulls. Tampa always will have a special place in my heart. But I also call myself a serial career changer and passion pursuer because I have done a lot in these 42 years of life that I've lived. And so I started out as a program coordinator at the university in Tampa, and I taught every type of fitness class that you could think of. I was a kickboxing instructor, Pilates instructor, yoga instructor, Zumba instructor, and I also ran that program there. I then transitioned into teaching. I had an amazing mentor in my life while I was in high school who really just made me want to pursue teaching, even just for a little while to give back. And so I was a middle school science teacher. I taught bioengineering and forensics to my babies at McNichol Middle School. So shout out to all the family at McNichol. Teachers deserve to be paid $1 million a year. I will stand 10 toes down on that because it is one of the hardest, most important jobs that we have ever in this world. Speaking of children, I am a single mom of two beautiful, beautiful girls. I have a 20-year-old and a 7-year-old. I know it's a big gap, y'all. Listen, it works. I have a built-in babysitter. Highly recommend 10 out of 10. But my kids are also amazing human beings that I absolutely adore. And I love being a mom. They are my world. And I'm passionate about social justice. I'm passionate about inclusivity. If you know me on my personal page, then you know that I talk my talk, and I will always advocate for those who can't, and lastly, my favorite thing to do ever in this world, and if you know me personally, you know this is the truth. I love to dance. I love to dance to anything and everything with anyone or no one. If you have a dance floor, I want to be there. I want to be in the middle of it. You have a stage? Ooh, put me on that too. So, I dance like everyone and no one is watching. Music is just my passion. It's my heart. It's what brings me my joy. So that gives you a quick little snippet about me. But let's really get into the story and really start talking about the movement, because the tagline, as I said earlier, of the movement is my story, my block, and my legacy. So I want to explore more about that and what that means for me. So my story is riddled with, just like yours, I'm sure, a lot of resilience. Growing up in New York City is not easy, and moving around as much as I did was not easy. And so there's a lot of resilience, but there's a lot of triumph as well in there. There's definitely a lot of joy, a lot of creativity. I always say that I am a creative at heart, and I always will be. I'm a corporate baddie by day, but a creative by night. And I like that. I like living in both worlds. When I think about my block and I think about my story, it is all a culmination of all these pieces that have come together to really lead me to this moment to create this movement. And so where it really all started was the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I grew up first in the East Village, and I was so fortunate that I grew up in the East Village at a time where it was very punk and grunge and grimy and gay and fabulous and all those things. And I lived there until I was about 8 years old, and then I moved to Avenue D. And so, yep, I'm from the Ave. And if you know anything about the Ave, especially at that time, it's a little bit ghetto, and that's okay. I say that with all love and affection because that is what made me. Growing up in that environment where you saw your parents struggle and you had to hustle and you had to figure a way to make things happen. It teaches you to hustle and grind and survive from a very, very young age. And so I absolutely did. I was also fortunate enough to live where I lived in my neighborhood, but then also go to school on Park Avenue. And those are two totally different worlds. But it showed me that there was more out there, right? I aspired to do more and be more. And it's why I did pursue academia so hard for a really long time, and why I did leave New York City, because I never felt like I really fit in here. I always felt like I was just too much for this city. There was more that I wanted to see and accomplish, and I wanted to get out, and so I did. And so I encourage anybody, whoever wants to move. I have moved so many times in my life. Listen, pick up and go. You can always start new, and that's the beauty of life, right? So, being from the Lower East Side and that neighborhood being so diverse, it was very Puerto Rican power. I am a Puerto Rican from the diaspora that did not grow up with any ties to the island. So I want to make that clear to people, because I know that story resonates with a lot of others. I had no immediate family that I knew there. All my family was here, including my grandparents, who had came over when they were actually teenagers. So I was third generation here, and we spoke English. I did not learn Spanish until I was an adult. I grew up with the foods that we all eat, and I grew up making pasteles and, seasoning the pernil with my grandmother. I grew up listening to the salsa music blasting at 8 a.m. My mother was an amazing and still is salsa dancer, and that's actually where I learned a lot of my Spanish too. If you remember back in the days, we had CDs, and I wanted to learn Spanish so bad. And so what I would do is put the CD on, and I would take the pamphlet out, I would open it up, and I would read the lyrics over and over and over again. And I think that's kind of how I mastered pronunciation of certain words. However, I did not know what they meant, but that was okay. It prepared me much more later in life to learn and understand the language. But yeah, I didn't grow up tied to the island, but did I grow up feeling Puerto Rican? Absolutely 100% I did. And so for anybody out there who doesn't have any ties to the island, listen, when you grow up here in New York City, we looked forward to that parade every single year. Your friends knew you were Puerto Rican and they knew you were proud of it. And sometimes, like me, you were told that you're not a real Puerto Rican. You don't speak Spanish because you're not a real Puerto Rican. And that's actually one of the topics that we'll be talking about and dedicating a whole episode of the podcast to, because it is such an important discussion to have about the identity of the diaspora, right? And those messages that we were brought up hearing about ourselves and our culture, and trying to function in two different worlds, really knowing that we belong to both. And it's okay to belong to both. So we'll get into that in a future episode. My journey to Puerto Rico really started when I was 38 years old. Before that, Puerto Rico sure was on my mind, but it was never a priority to visit there just because life had gotten in the way. And finally, when I was settled in my life, I could travel freely. And so I made my first trip to Puerto Rico at 38 years old. And that was 4 years ago. And there's been so many trips from then till now that have shaped me, molded me, changed my identity, changed my outlook on a lot of things, and really drove me to this point where I felt like I needed to create this movement and create this awareness within our people, especially here, and to try to bridge that gap between us. So, if I think about it, there's really four main moments over the last few years of my life that have really left great impressions upon me. And so my first trip to Puerto Rico actually wasn't to go just because it was Puerto Rico, but I booked that trip because there was a Afrobeats festival in Puerto Rico. It was a 3-day festival. If you know anything about me, I love Afrobeats. I love all beats, but I really love Afrobeats. And so a 3-day festival under the stars, dancing my life away. I mean, in Puerto Rico, they made this for me, right? That was my very first trip, and I knew I was going to love it, but I did not know how much I was going to love it in Puerto Rico. And what I really didn't anticipate about that trip was that it would really change my identity, because growing up here, again, very disconnected from the island, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And so when I went there, yes, I saw the beautiful beaches, and I saw all the fun that we were having and all of those things. But it was also for the first time in my life that I really saw a lot of people who looked like me. So I grew up, with the long black hair, with more of the Indian features. People would ask me all the time what I was, and they never would guess Puerto Rican at first. They'd always guess something else. And that wasn't a bad thing, but I lacked that sense of identity here because there weren't many Puerto Ricans that I found to look like me. And I'm not saying that there aren't in New York, but I just didn't find many of them growing up. And so when I went there and I saw these beautiful women with the darker skin and the long jet black hair, I was like, oh my God, like these are my people. And it was all my favorite things in one place. It was the food that I loved, the music that I loved. It was the dancing all night and just laughing and enjoying life. I came from this hustle and grind culture, but at the same time, there was a part of me that was like, I don't want to hustle and grind that much. I want to just really enjoy my life and enjoy nature and enjoy the scenery and the surroundings of everything. I couldn't describe it, but I just felt like A, I'm home, and B, oh my God, this was here for me all along. Like this was here for me. I'm a Puerto Rican and I had no clue. I was clueless how amazing the island was, and I was completely clueless to how going back would make me feel, especially as an adult. So that was the moment that planted the seed for me. I had a beautiful trip there. I connected so much with myself and I was bit by the bug. So from then on, I wanted to continue to go back. I also experienced my first family trip there, which was an amazing trip because one of the people that I went with, my brother-in-law that I love so much, my chulo, he actually passed a year after that trip. And I'm so forever grateful to Puerto Rico for giving me that time and those memories with him and our children. So that was a very impactful moment for me. I just felt like every time I visited Puerto Rico, it gave me another gift. It just gave me something else and something I could take back with me. And it continued to pique my interest. Around the same time as that happened, was very close to my grandfather, who has also passed since then. But I remember having a really wonderful conversation with him. And I was telling him, Grandpa, I love Puerto Rico. Do you not want to go back? Like, let's go back. And he looked at me so seriously. And he was like, yeah, I hate Puerto Rico. I do not want to go back to Puerto Rico. I will never go back to Puerto Rico. And I was like, excuse me. Like, y'all, I had to clutch my pearls because I was so taken aback by that. I'm like, why? How? Because I had had such a different experience than him being in Puerto Rico. But, again, that really sparked something inside me to try to figure out why. What was the why behind that? And that conversation with him really led me to start researching the history of Puerto Rico and to start trying to figure out why him and other Puerto Ricans really felt that way about the island. And through that research and through that discovery, I really started to understand colonialism for the first time and the impact that colonialism has had and continues to have on the island. And really, there were no opportunities for him when he was younger. It was riddled with poverty, and the economy had just been tanked by the U.S. on purpose. We know that now. And many Puerto Ricans were enticed with, come to the States. You're a citizen. Get this job. Make this money. You don't need to be back there. All the while, to be honest, they were just taking it from us right underneath our noses, and we didn't even realize it. But it gave me that deep understanding for him and also that compassion for him and others who left, because I got it. I understood you had a totally different experience than I did, and I couldn't argue with him about that. I had to honor that. So that definitely was one of the turning points for me. And then lastly, last year, I went to Puerto Rico very early in the year. And not only did I fall more in love with Puerto Rico, but y'all, I fell in love in Puerto Rico. And so I promised you that I would keep it real, I would keep it raw, because this is part of my story. And I entered into a relationship with someone who lived on the island. It was the most, and still is to this day, special and beautiful relationship. It did not wind up working out, but for a whole entire year, to grow that relationship, I would travel back to the island. And so I traveled almost every single month, sometimes twice a month last year, to the island to visit this person. And there were many, many beautiful things that I got out of this relationship. So shout out to that person. I've told you before, but thank you. Thank you for everything. Absolutely no regrets. But one of the best things that I got out of that relationship was that I really transitioned from being a tourist to a resident. And so I got to see the other side of it. I got to live the other side of it. I got to experience from their perspective, really and truly, all the struggles that they were going through and all the things that were so really unfair for them. I was so shocked when I learned that there was no Zelle or Cash App allowed. Like, are you kidding me? Why? I know why. It's because they want to keep Puerto Ricans in poverty and they don't want them to be able to freely move their money about. But it enraged me. I was there during many times where the lights would go out, and then realizing that not only do your lights go out, but your water goes out as well, because there's no electricity to run the pumps. After crazy storms, having to wait for the city to come and cut down this tree that's blocking your driveway, and maybe they come fast and maybe they don't. Filing a car insurance claim and how taxing that is. Getting any type of medical care, really good specialized medical care, how hard that was on the island for the people. And it really started to open my eyes to see and try to understand why, what was going on here. And through this person, and again, I'm so forever grateful for them because they were very big on teaching me. So they taught me the history about things. They taught me why things were the way that they were there and how incredibly unfair it was to them. And so that really sparked a lot of the research. And that's when I started to educate myself on things like the Jones Act and Act 60, understanding the economics and the politics that were going on in Puerto Rico. And while I was doing that research, I was also doing personal research for myself in trying to figure out how to possibly relocate to Puerto Rico, right? I was in this relationship and eventually the plan was to relocate there. And so I was doing my own home search. I was doing my own mortgage search. And as I started to go online and just do my own search, and I will tell you, here's a tip for anybody who's thinking about moving to Puerto Rico. Go on Facebook because there are so many Facebook groups dedicated to people who have either moved there or are thinking about moving there. And you get a lot of your questions answered in those Facebook chats. And so in these groups, though, I would literally see hundreds of people asking the same exact questions that I was asking. I was like, this is too hard. There's no one source of truth. There's no one place that you can just go that's easy to find what you need to find in order to be able to do this. Like the websites, nothing is updated or nothing is even electronic, right? And so trying to gather all of this information from all corners of the earth was really a struggle for me. And I saw that it was also a struggle for other people. And that, along with learning about the abandoned properties on the home and the inheritance laws and why things were the way that they were, really brought me to the moment where I just said to myself one day, you know, my God, we just need to figure this out and go back and buy the block. And that was the light bulb. It was a light bulb for me that was like, I just need to do this. I'm a director of learning now. I work in corporate America. Learning, training people is my thing. And I was like, I need to use this talent, this skill that I have to take all of this information that I've learned and to really put it in one central location where my people could access it, right? And use a platform to really educate people on what it was like over there to be a local, to live over there and experience the island, and to really try to, again, demystify it for many, many people in the diaspora, especially those like me who had no family connections and who just had no ties to the island. It's one thing if you have at least grandparents and all of that there, but what about people like us who have nobody there and yet we still feel this calling in our heart to go back? And so I just said, I got to start this. And one thing about me is that I turn my pain into my passion always. And so once the relationship ended earlier this year, and I was sad, y'all. I was sad. It's okay to be sad. Tomorrow is always a new day, I promise. But what it really did for me was it fueled me to take that pain and to take that hurt of a broken heart and to put it into something that would help people, right? Like I told you earlier, I'm a social justice warrior, and I really wanted to move personally from just posting about the problems to providing a solution to them, right? We can all post about it, but what are we doing about it? That's the bigger thing with it. And so I took all my pain, I took all my knowledge, I took my heart for people, and I decided that I wanted to be a solution for people out there. And I was going to be a solution for my own people because I do believe in a Puerto Rico for Puerto Ricans with Puerto Ricans. And what I also learned from that relationship is how important the local community in Puerto Rico is to the diaspora, because we don't know how to navigate the island. We don't know what it's really like to live there and how to be successful. We come from this very hustle, capitalist culture. And over there, you learn community again, right? It brings you back to those things. And so we need them. We need each other. That is really, truly the message of all of this, is that we need each other in order for Puerto Rico to thrive again, and in order for us to be successful if and when we do relocate back. We have to do it in partnership with the local community and with respect for the culture, not to go and change it, but to just enhance it, right? We don't need to move back there and create mini New York and mini Miami and anything else you can think of. We need to let Puerto Rico continue to be Puerto Rico, and the keepers of that are the locals on the island. So that's why I always emphasize with By the Block that there is no By the Block without the local Puerto Rican community. There is not. And I've had many people challenge me and ask me, what are you doing for Puerto Rico? What is By the Block? What are you buying? Who are you to buy anything over there? And that's okay. I don't get offended by it. I love it because it sparks conversation. Again, it's confronting those things that keep us separated and really trying to find connection through them. And when people hear the heart behind the movement and understanding that, no, this is not just so you can move over there and take, but this is so you can move over there and give, it completely changes the conversation, completely changes the angle of what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do. So what's to come next? A lot. There is so much that is to come for By the Block. There's so much that is to continue to come next for my story and my journey. But truly, the most rewarding thing that I've gotten out of this so far has just been the response from you guys out there. Seeing and meeting a community of like minded people. I am not the only one who is doing this, and I don't want to be the only one who is doing this, right? There are so many others that I have met out there who have partnered with me and embraced me, and vice versa. And we've said, yo, we need to do this together. You have a heart for Puerto Rico. I have a heart for Puerto Rico. You understand what's going on. I understand what's going on. How can we come together? So one of the things that I will be offering through this platform, absolutely, are educational seminars. We're going to break down bite-sized, really easily digestible chunks of information for you when it comes to all things relocating, right? So we are going to tackle how to get a mortgage out there, where to find homes, how to kind of narrow down that search when you're looking to move somewhere, what's up and coming, what's a really good place that maybe is good for investments. We'll talk about entrepreneurship. There are so many, oh my gosh, there are so many possibilities for different businesses and all those cool creative things that we have here in New York. Yo, let's go bring them back over there because the island would love it, and it is happening. So we'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about identity. Identity is such a big thing within the diaspora, but it's also a big conversation to have with the locals because we want to talk about and confront and figure out, how do you feel about us? And will you truly embrace us? I have experienced nothing but warmth and love from the locals on the island. I truly cannot say that I've ever experienced somebody who called me a gringa or told me I wasn't Puerto Rican enough. But I also think it's the heart that you go back with. It's the intentions that you go back with. My Spanish is not perfect, pero me tiro, okay? Because I don't care. I speak my crazy Spanish to them, and when I don't understand something, I ask them to translate it for me. I let them correct me because I learned through that. I engage with them in their world. I don't try to bring them into my world because I want to be a part of their world, to be honest. They really do have what is truly, for me personally, the ultimate goal in life, which is to be surrounded by beauty and magic and to really live that simple, very authentic, very joyful life in community and with family. And it's something, unfortunately, in the States, just because of the way things have happened here, that gentrification and people moving and people separating from each other and families living really far apart, but that sense of community is still there in Puerto Rico. So I want it, and I know you do too. We admire it, but there'll be lots of educational seminars that'll come out of this, and there also will be some inspirational storytelling. So my story is not the only story that matters. Every voice matters, and I want to be intentional about saying that, especially to my people in the diaspora. There's a tendency to feel like, who am I? Why would anybody listen to me? Why do I even have a voice or a place to say anything? But I want to be the first person who's ever told you that you matter. Your voice in the diaspora matters. You do have a place in this fight. You do have a place on that island with our people, 100%. And again, there are so many people on the island who do welcome us back. You don't get caught up in the few stories that you hear about people not being welcomed and not having a great experience, because I can tell you there's 5 more stories behind it of people who have had the most awesome and amazing experience. If it wasn't happening, why are they all moving over there? We'll leave it at that. Okay, we're not the only ones who love Puerto Rico, but the seminars, the storytelling, there are so many events that are coming up with this. I already have 3 events lined up back to back to back. So I have an event coming up this Monday at the Empire Rooftop Hotel. It's a networking event. Come mingle, come meet myself, and another collaborator that I'm working with who's in the same space, who has the same vision for Puerto Rico and getting people to relocate back. My second event that I have is a Caribbean cultural pop-up that I'm doing June 14th at La Fonda. It's going to be amazing. I'll have a table there. There's over 20 different vendors from Black and Latino-owned businesses that will be there. So please come out and check that out. And then we have our live podcast event. So this premiere episode is going to be leading up to our event where we will talk about independence. So on the heels of 4th of July, we really wanted to have a conversation to talk about and address independence in Puerto Rico, because now more than ever with this administration and what is going on in the government, it is a real possibility that people are talking about that could happen. You know, for the first time in many, many years, the Independence Party in Puerto Rico almost won the governor race. That's huge. That's major. The younger demographic, those 20s, those 30s, they get it. They understand. They see it. They have a voice now. And it's a really, really important topic to discuss from both sides, because we have different unique perspectives about it and about Puerto Rico becoming a state or staying as a commonwealth or gaining its full independence. So we're going to talk about all of those things at that live podcast event. Again, that will be July 5th. If you can make it, please come out. We are considering panelists at this time to have a really great variety and mix of, different perspectives. And I think that's very important as we continue to bridge this gap between emotions and people, that we really come to each other with humility, and with respect for the other person's opinion and lived experience. Everybody has had a very different experience with Puerto Rico, and we can't discount that. We can't dishonor that. What we need to do is hear each other out, because I will say it over and over again, we need each other. We need each other. And it's only going to be us saving us, right? I'm big on that. It is us saving us, and I am for it. I am down. So if you would like to be a part of this movement, if you would like to share your story with me and be featured on here, if you have moved back to the island or you're thinking of moving back to the island, I want to share your story. If you've accomplished something great for the island, I want to share your story. Let's start to talk about Puerto Rico in a positive light now, and talk about all the amazing things that are being accomplished on the island from both sides. I have such the blessing and privilege and honor of being part of Somos el Cambio, which is a wonderful group that's been created on IG of people like me and like you, who just have a heart and a vision for Puerto Rico. And so we were all put into this chat together. We all shared our talents, our skills, our interests, our passions. And now we're in a bunch of subgroups that are actually creating initiatives to put boots on the ground and do things for the people in Puerto Rico. So for example, I am heading up an agricultural and elderly group, and our first initiative is focusing on the elderly, where we're going to put together solar kits, different solar appliances, solar power generator, and a solar fan, and some solar lighting for the outside of homes. And we're going to raise the money to get these things and then go ship them to Puerto Rico and have them installed in little viejitos' houses that need them, who maybe can't afford them. It's one thing, but everything counts. Everything matters. There's also an educational group that's come out of this initiative. And right now they are fundraising for school supply giveaways and backpack giveaways for the children in Puerto Rico. So you could go to my page. I posted it there. Make a donation if you feel led to, because we are going to just fill those backpacks up for those kids and give them out. There's also a political group that is focused on getting to Congress and, putting Puerto Rico on their radar and keeping it on their radar, so that we do try to help influence change. There's an art group, there's a solar group, there's so much that we can accomplish together. But I want to leave you ultimately with my vision for By the Block. Because after the education, after the inspiration, after the storytelling, what action is going to be taken? And so my ultimate goal with this is to create a collective of individuals who are like-minded, 5, 10, 15, however big it gets, and to really set ourselves up together to go back and buy property by the block in a chosen location, a community that needs it, and to really go in there and revitalize that community, to partner with our neighbors, our locals, to help each other create fincas in our backyards, to fix the infrastructure that might be crumbling around us, to paint the homes and get Puerto Rico back to looking beautiful and bright like it was. There's so many things that could come out of By the Block. There's Light the Block to bring solar to everybody in our little neighborhood that we start. Paint the block, feed the block, educate the block. Let's go back and build schools. There are so many amazing charter schools here. We have an opportunity now to go back and build those for the kids, because we know that the public education system is so severely underfunded there. But that's our pilot community to really showcase, when the diaspora comes and we unite with the locals that are already there, how amazing are those blocks going to be. So that's my ultimate dream. That's my ultimate vision for this. And then to replicate that and to continue to do it over and over and over and over and over again until we have a Puerto Rico with Puerto Ricans for Puerto Ricans. I'm going to wrap this up by saying I thank you so much. I am honored. I am so humbled again by all of your love and all of your support. And if any of this has resonated with you, please reach out to me. I am more than happy to set up one-on-ones. Tell me your dreams so I can help you make them become a reality, because that's what we're here for, to support each other and to grow and to learn from each other. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, and look forward to much, much more that is coming from By the Block PR, all being broadcast on our Blockcast.